It's Buff Divers Day +3. We've got the new Chemical Agents Warbond, and as players are returning and getting a chance to log in for the update, and of course that new Warbond, opinions are starting to be formed and posted, and they vary from excellent to meh to awful. Welcome to the channel. This is LtBuzzLitebeer, and it's time for a quick Friday lightning round of Helldivers info, from more headlines and statements from Arrowhead to feedback on that new Warbond, and of course we will squeeze in your thoughts on it as well. Now if you're new here, consider hitting subscribe, as it's free and it goes a long way to getting the channel promoted to the far reaches of YouTube, and while you're at it, spend a few seconds more ringing that notifications bell so you never miss one of my future upload alerts. So sit back, Buff Divers, it's time for more from Helldivers.
System of failure.
Sorry for the delay on this one. I spent last night into this morning recording a lot of footage, testing the new items, and also squatting up live on stream with the likes of Claysthetics, ThiccFila, and CrazyMrPipz, who are all crazy good Helldiver players. And I will leave a link to all three of their YouTube channels down in the video description. Stop on by, let them know Buzz sent you, and also on a side note, I was stunned at how insane Mr. Pipz is at playing the game. I mean, not bad for a 47-year-old. Woo! Quickly over to the Galactic map, and this has remained unchanged from yesterday's upload, other than we have one less day to go. The divers are still at a -2 ratio of planets liberated versus that of the enemy, but we've got the weekend coming up and should be able to make a mighty push for democracy. And while you're here, I didn't record it, but today's daily or personal order is to kill 100 enemies with the 500 kg, which, considering its rekindled popularity and just how much more effective it is now at killing chaff, you should be able to crush this one in no time at all, and expect to pocket 15 medals once done. Helldivers 2 boss responds to sentiment that Space Marine 2 could eat their lunch. Quote, "We should be grateful for getting several awesome games," is the headline Yahoo Tech ran with in a recent article referencing Helldivers 2, and quotes from Johan as well. In response to Discord that Helldivers 2 would die when Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 came out, Arrowhead Games Studios CCO, Johan Pilstead, said, quote, "I think we should be grateful for getting several awesome games. I can't even imagine how I, as a kid, would have felt to be able to play Helldivers and Space Marine 2. Now, some of the sentiment proclaiming Space Marine 2 as a Helldivers killer was probably fueled by less than popular nerfs, I would agree, and updates that have been creeping into the year's biggest shooter. That all seems to be subsiding though, as Arrowhead Games' first big patch, as part of its 60-day recovery plan, has already been winning back players, while the game's creative director admitted that, quote, "Nerfing is an unimaginative way of tweaking a game." Just before recording this one, I actually jumped into the Steam charts via SteamDB. By the way, link always available to this down in the video description. And both games are currently sitting outside the Steam top 15 most played, and both are within about 20,000 players of each other. And on a side note, I have both of these games. I play both of these games. They are similar in certain aspects, but wildly different in others. And I enjoy each of these games for that individual experience they can deliver. Now, if Arrowhead had continued down the path they were heading with Helldivers while SM2 arrived up on the scene, that could have possibly signaled the final nail in the coffin for Helldivers. But, you know, Arrowhead escaped disaster, and so far, the Buff Diver update is being received with open arms. Plus, you can also equip one of the new Superstore masks and live out your Space Marine deathcore of Krieg fantasies while still playing within Helldivers. Alright, let's talk chemical agents, and I've been receiving a ton of questions about this new Warbond. I've seen and read your YouTube comments, I've received DMs, and we've openly discussed it over in my Discord server and of course on those live streams. Now for many, this is the worst Warbond Arrowhead has ever released, while others seem to like it. Now, I made my opinions known yesterday, those being I wasn't in favor of it, not just because of the lack of damage any of these new stratagems were able to dish out, but more so because the crowd control fantasy doesn't really vibe with me. Since then, I received some damage number charts and worked on some ideas on how to best improve this Warbond, which, by the way, I'm sure Arrowhead is already busy at work at, considering the tepid feedback they've been receiving about it. So, first off is the stem pistol, which heals for somewhere between 40 and 50 HP, and oh, by the way, it can't be self-administered, meaning it is absolutely useless in your hands and for your loadout, as it only applies to teammates that you can shoot with it. Plus, the Helldiver player hitbox is small, so aiming it exactly where you think one of your squad mates will be when it arrives, because the travel time is so slow due to it being a dart pistol. Anyways, you end up missing your friendly targets unless they stand still, which in this game and at the pace that enemies rush you is basically asking for a death sentence. Again, we're talking through this. How does Arrowhead make this a valuable selection for a sidearm? What would make players pick the stem pistol over, say, a crisper or even the grenade pistol? Well, first you start off with that health regen. 40 to 50 HP is way too little, and the regen rates themselves are really slow. Both of those need to be doubled, tripled, maybe even more. Also, with the new enemy damage versus divers modifiers we saw installed with the buff diver update, even the lightest graze from an enemy has a player popping a stem because of how low their health becomes. So the extra healing they could add on with the pistol could be clutch if it's changed. Also, the aim hitbox on a fellow Helldiver needs to be increased, and by a lot. And finally, there needs to be a mechanic installed so we can self-administer these stem pistol darts. Maybe even allow us to aim it directly down and shoot our feet, or create an aura on the ground where if we shot it out in front of ourselves and ran through that healing aura, the stem effect would apply. But as it is now, the stem is an expensive and quickly shelved sidearm, unless serious and immediate changes are made to this item. Moving over to the sterilizer and the guard dog, the dog breath, and the stats on these are both dreadfully lacking, and since these are matching an output, we can speak as if they were just a single unit. Check out these numbers. Both the sterilizer and the dog breath push out about 50 DPS and another 50 or so durable damage on the initial hit, and the follow-up ticks are half that, so just 25 and 25, meaning that once you hit a target with the gas jet and the damage ticks start collecting combined, you were tagging enemies for about 75 damage. That's terrible. Now, outside of both of these items having armor penetration 5, there's not much you can say about them other than the gas confuse effect does last for 3 seconds. And then you can reapply the gas, leading to some humorous moments where you have enemies attacking each other, but keep this in mind. The range on both of these is severely limited. For instance, with the sterilizer, it matches that of the flamethrower, which is barely over 20 meters range, meaning you have to get in close and constantly apply and reapply the gas for any real effects to take hold, hoping that the crazed enemies don't swipe at you, which could lead to an insta-death, all while giving up valuable stratagem spots that could have been spent on a weapon that could have downed those now dazed and confused enemies in a matter of seconds. Again, talking it through, here's where you start. First, a damage cloud needs to be installed into the game. We are spraying gas all over the place, but no lingering cloud effects can be seen as it applies to individual targets instead. We need the ability to do what the gas grenade does, and that it can create these confusing zones where enemies that enter it are then hit with the effect. Second is that these two items need a ton more damage added into the equation, both on the initial hit and on the corresponding ticks. I mean, I get the concept, it looks good on paper, but it almost feels like these items are relics of designs for the old Helldivers model, where we were grossly underpowered and starving for a few seconds of protection from the oncoming enemy onslaughts. In that version of Helldivers, basically the last 5 or 6 months for players, this crowd control fantasy would have been a much better place for it to slot in. But the way it stands, outside of using the dog breath in the specific scenario as the egg carrier running for your life, these items are underperforming across the board. And finally, let's talk about the gas grenade and those new armor sets. But in reality, the armor doesn't really matter in this equation. It's the advanced filtration passive we actually need to talk about. So up first, the grenade. I actually think this is in a good spot, by the way. It has value and it also has utility. It can be used for offense and defense on smaller mobs, and it works much the way you think a gas-centric item should work, leaving a cloud AoE that functions much like a stun grenade, but on a larger scale. And now, over to those armor sets. And we've already seen that divers have figured out that if you equip the store-bought heavy armor with the new passive and combo with the vitality booster, you can tank 100% of the gas cloud damage, which, bug or not, I think needs to remain a part of the game. I mean, if you have to give up all that speed and stamina regen in order to use the heavy armor, at least let it stay king in one facet of the game, and 100% resistance to the exact effect you were wearing it for would be the way to do it. But I digress. The passive is really what we need to talk about, and at least to me, this is also in a pretty good spot. I mean, I had the most fun and, again, utility with this new gas mechanic when I avoided everything from the Warbond except the new armor set, and I instead used the orbital gas strike, which of course has already been in the game. Now, once the gas hits, I would then sprint into this cloud of now choking enemies and just lay into them with like a flamethrower or a heavy-hitting primary weapon. But again, that's me creating my own fun outside of the Warbond. I'm kind of playing in a way that this Warbond was not intended, which basically flanks around all the deficiencies we see with chemical agents. I'm thinking Arrowhead is already busy at work brainstorming on how they can quickly adjust these items because they seem to not being received well with the community. And hopefully my suggestions here in this video and others around the community can lead to some quick and meaningful change. Also, while we're on the topic of discussing chemical agents, leave me a comment and let me know what you would change and specifically why. And now let's switch it up and move over to your top 3 comments. And if you want to see your name and comment up in lights in my next video, you first need to let it fly on this video. That's right, you need to drop me a comment, and who knows, it may be upvoted enough so you see it in my next upload. Let's kick it off. Number 1 for this breakdown comes to us from DeathThresh9548, who says, I think it would have been way cooler if the armor gave you 100% gas resistance so you can just be a gas madman and bathe in huge clouds of gas while the enemy struggles to get to you. I think I've covered that quite extensively in this video, and there is a way to do it, although I think it's currently bugged in that capacity, but I'd love to see that stay in the game. I definitely am on board with your suggestion, and congrats on taking the top spot for this countdown. Number 2 comes to us from Kadia7334, who says, the advanced filtration effect should have been put on the helmets, not the armor, in my opinion. And that's an interesting suggestion. And I know that Johan has actually floated the idea that they were running different types of passives, or maybe just all the passives in general, on the helmets, but that it was nixed prior to release. So maybe that's something we'll see in the future, but it would be interesting, right? Where we could actually carry something different on our body armors, or maybe we could customize those body armors to carry maybe heavy armor, but with a specific effect that we wanted, and then our helmets would have an additional passive. That would be a cool concept. By the way, Kadia, congrats on taking the number 2 spot. And finally, bringing up the caboose, number 3 comes to us from GG Blaster, who says, we need a guard dog that automatically shoots stems at wounded Helldivers. Call it medic or wound liquor. Now that's an interesting idea. So overall, a healing drone of sorts. I mean, we have that in other games. I play The Division quite a bit. You do have a healing drone effect over there. That would be interesting in Helldivers. I don't know how it would exactly be applied or implemented, but certainly a worthy suggestion. And by the way, congrats GG Blaster on taking number 3. So that's it for our Friday lightning round, a little shorter video than normal. And as always, I welcome your feedback. Make sure to drop me a comment, leave me anything you want to talk about concerning Helldivers 2, and I'll do my best to respond. Remember to hit subscribe and to ring that notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. All my socials, including links to all my sources, can be found down in the video description. Shout out to the now over 244,000 subscribers from around the world. You ladies and gents are incredible. Our goal of 250 channel subscribers is right around the corner, and if you haven't yet hit subscribe, we'd love to have you along for the ride. So take a swing on it. Hit that sub button, and while you're at it, ring that notifications bell as well. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.